Happy International Women's Day. Let's talk about one of the pioneers in paleontology and fossil hunting. This is Mary Anning. She was born in 1799 and she is credited with the discoveries of many types of fossils. Now, way back when, women weren't allowed to attend university or really even have an education, so pretty much everything that she did was self-taught. Now, Mary Anning's family lived around the Lyme Regis area around the English Channel, an area quite noted for its famous fossil beds. Now, this was kind of before there was a lot of rules and regulations about fossil hunting. You didn't have to report anything, and you could just take whatever you found and do whatever you want with it. So her family, to supplement their income, they made quite a lot of money by selling fossils that they found to tourists, and that is kind of how she got interested in paleontology and fossils herself. Mary and her brother Joseph were very into fossil hunting, and they are credited as children with being the first to discover the ichthyosaurs. When Mary was 12 and her brother Joseph was 15, they dug up and thus discovered the very first ichthyosaur skull. This fossil up here is actually the ichthyosaur that Mary and her brother ended up discovering. It is still on display in a museum right now. So Mary continued in her fossil hunting business and eventually set up her own storefront to sell fossils out of. So due to the fact that she was a woman in the early 1800s, she was not allowed to have any sort of formal education, especially a scientific education. So despite her extensive knowledge of geology and paleontology, she was not taken at all seriously by the scientific community that was made up of entirely men at this point. However, the men in the paleontology community were very open to using her discoveries and often published very well-received scientific reports and made discoveries using fossil specimens that she herself dug up and discovered and gave her absolutely none of the credit. While this ichthyosaur specimen is probably her most famous discovery, she was also credited with discovering a ton of other species. Other discoveries that are credited to her include things like types of plesiosaurs, types of fossil fishes, and types of pterosaurs. She was also the first person to suggest that fossilized coprolites were actually dinosaur and other animals' fossilized feces. Before she kind of hypothesized that, we knew that the coprolites were fossilized something, we just didn't have any idea as to what exactly. Her data and evidence were used to kind of support the theory of evolution, as well as the age of reptiles, the theory that before mammals were the dominant type of animal on Earth, the world was kind of populated by gigantic reptiles, or more commonly known, the dinosaurs. Though Mary Anning is slightly well more now, a lot of her discoveries went uncredited for an incredibly long time and were largely attributed to the male paleontologist that used the discoveries she made and data and fossils she collected and published their own works. Without a lot of the fossils and other specimens collected by Mary Anning, the field of paleontology would definitely not be what it is today.